The views and opinions of the host and guests on the Columbus ASHRAE Podcast are their own, and not necessarily affiliated with the Columbus ASHRAE chapter or the ASHRAE organization.
Ladies and gentlemen, what's going on? It's Jay from Jocko here, and it is another episode of the ASHRAE Podcast. And with me, as always, is Rafi.
Yep. What's up, guys?
KFI Engineers. And we have a couple special guests. Today, we have, well, if you're watching the video, you're going to wonder who guest number 4 is. But we have Devan Stewart from Harris is here with us today. And Pikachu.
Pika.
If you're not watching the video, you're going to be a little confused right now.
Right.
But that goes to show there are the video podcast is on LinkedIn, so feel free to come in and check that out. But Pikachu, go ahead and reveal yourself. And it's Christine Witt from CCO.
Never would have guessed.
If you guessed Christine Witt, you are correct.
Nice.
So Christine from CCO has provided our hospitality tonight here at the Novocaine, and it's an awesome place. So thank you for putting this on for
Thanks
us.
for having us.
Yeah. So Devan, you are our special guest here, and we want.
I thought it was Pikachu.
Well, we did have multiple,
Right.
but we wanted to bring you in because what we do is we try and bring a value to our members of ASHRAE and talking with folks in the industry. And you're on the general contracting side, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
And that's a little bit of a representation we haven't had yet.
Right.
Good.
So why don't you start out a little bit, just tell us about yourself, how you got into this industry, and then we'll jump into how you kind of interact with the mechanical engineer side of things.
Yeah. Like to kind of, it's not one of those careers you sit around as a little kid and be like, I want to be a mechanical project manager someday. Got into the career pretty much without a clear idea in college of what I exactly wanted to do. So kind of got into my sophomore year and kind of looking through curriculums, pay scale, everything in between, and kind of scratching some things out that, wouldn't be of interest to me, and kind of landed on a construction systems management career. So went with that and really enjoyed the curriculum over there, and kind of out of school still wasn't decided whether or not I would go into what part of the construction trade. Kind of landed at a company up by my hometown in Northwest Ohio that brought me on as a mechanical project engineer. So worked there and kind of moved up through the ranks and kind of took some table scraps from projects and kind of worked my way up to project manager and now working at Harris Company.
What was that like when you first got your first mechanical project? What did you think of that?
Well, I had a lot of project managers that I worked with that kind of showed me a different aspect from, how they did things, and kind of allowed me to formulate my own kind of way of doing it. And yeah, once you get your first one, it's kind of out there, and
So what was your first project?
Do you remember?
I do remember. It was actually at the William Green Building downtown. There's a BWC down there, and it was a third shift job. So it was kind of one of those ones that, a lot of the guys who have tenure kind of wanted to avoid, and, kind of wanting to make my name for itself. It kind of landed as my first project, and kind of all history from there. And
Nice.
Like I said, kind of, it was a small renovation project there. But like I said, third shift and required a lot of late nights and really early mornings. And it's kind of how you get the opportunity into management usually, is kind of getting something nobody wants and kind of taking it full on. So
Did you learn anything specifically from that project?
just the complexity and kind of having to be the person who has to have the answers. You don't really get that opportunity to turn around and kind of ask, and you really want to, provide those feedback to the people in the field.
I've
really
definitely had
enjoyed
that
that.
light bulb too, where it's like, I guess I have the answers. All right.
Yeah, you're the
Okay.
You're now the guy
Let's
that
go.
if you don't know, you gotta dig into it, and kind of. So really, that's the biggest thing you kind of learn through that.
Sure.
I mean, small things throughout my career. It's a never-ending learning experience in this field.
So how'd you get connected with Harris?
Harris, kind of got into doing a data center and was really interested in it, and kind of that's kind of what we're pursuing here in Columbus, Ohio. It's kind of obviously it's a kind of
a lot of data centers.
A lot of data centers.
It's
and
a
kind of
hotbed.
It's a hotbed. There's the word. A hotbed for technology right here in Columbus, and was very interested in that kind of career path, which kind of led me to Harris.
Did you guys ever read the book Ready Player One?
Yeah.
It was a
Based
movie
in
too.
Columbus.
Yeah, I saw the movie.
Yeah, the movie. I've never
Yeah.
seen the movie, and I was
Yeah.
told by my brother, an English professor, don't watch it. But in the book, Columbus was like in the future
Yeah.
the digital center of
Yeah.
the world.
And here we are.
And here we are on our
No
way.
spoilers, though.
No spoilers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's really good. You should watch it.
But
That's
that's
a good movie.
But that's what we're looking forward to. Is everyone's
Yeah.
going to want to be close to the grid, so you're going to have to
Right.
live here, right?
So
Definitely.
that's what kind of brought me on with Harris, and so far really enjoying it.
Nice.
They're a great company that really kind of has a really going after the big and risky projects, and
Yeah.
Kinda
That's kind
has-
of how we met, too. Is,
absolutely.
I'm working on several projects with Harris at Mayo, and Josh Howell, who's the project manager over there on the Mayo, on the Harris side for Mayo.
Yeah.
I realized that another person that we also know, Caitlin Hurt, who works for Sauer, mentioned something about Harris on one of her projects at OSU for Martha Morehouse. And I was like, Harris? What? They're working for Mayo right now. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So then I talked to Josh Howell, and he put me in touch with you. That's kind of how this this relationship started there.
Yeah, absolutely. Very big company, and kind of, with everything that's going on in Columbus. I know we're working at the Nationwide Children's Hospital downtown. I did some work at the Wexner, and did some work with the Honda plants, and now with the booming data centers, kind of here to kind of dig our toes into the sand and kind of make a presence here. That's going to be a lasting one.
So what's your approach when it comes to the mechanical side of a project? Do you default always to an engineer? Do you take an active role? How are you handling that?
Definitely got to take an active role. Another thing that you really learn early in your career is to kind of limit your questions for very important ones to engineers. People I'm sure he doesn't enjoy getting answers or questions that are very clear
for you guys. No problem at all.
No, he absolutely does. But with experience, some questions that the answer is hidden in here. So definitely take a proactive role and want to do my due diligence to find those answers. And kind of every project's different. Takes a certain amount of research into it at the start of every job and throughout. And
you almost got to go down the rabbit hole sometimes.
You absolutely do.
Yeah. Is that one of the things? It sounds like that's one of the things as a younger person trying to get into this industry or already in this industry. Sounds like a lessons learned is grab life by the horns kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, get into it.
It's for younger people, it's definitely one of those things where every day in project management and the mechanical, you have to wear a different hat. I mean, it's with engineering problem solving, doing a lot of research, familiarizing yourself with the plans and specs. But you're going to be reviewing contracts and stuff where you kind of have to think like an attorney a little bit. You got to dig into the accounting side of things and kind of figure out how the numbers fall. And kind of you're doing a fair amount of marketing and a lot of communication with vendors, and that's really what makes this industry happen is, the communication between, the management team, the engineers, the vendors, everything in between.
What are some qualities of an engineer that you appreciate when you're doing a job?
As far as qualities go,
I think you already touched on it, right? Communication.
Yeah, it's
right?
communication with engineering. That's 100%. I'd say the qualities of an engineer is, in their thoroughness and the kind of knowing what they're putting on paper. They're very familiar with the specs that they give out.
So you don't like the keynotes that say contractor to coordinate blank.
Yeah. There's a lot of that coming out.
I love those keynotes, to be honest.
Yeah. And there is a lot of delegated design. So whether it's an engineer that we're working for in a plan spec build or, engineers that you work directly with as a delegated design. They're very helpful and, always there to answer the call.
Yeah, so that whole contractor to install, contractor to configure, now is your floor. You have an audience of engineers.
Yep.
Which one of those do you like, and which one of those do you not like?
I haven't really come across an engineer that I necessarily can. There's no names that are coming to my head.
I wouldn't say engineer's name. I would say which delegations
don't I like?
Yes,
as
I'm not
far
asking
as,
you to say, this person's terrible.
That would have been great.
There can be a certain amount of, questions that you'd ask, and they can come off in a very, condescending way. Hey, if you would have looked a little harder, you would have found this kind of response. And ones that, usually when you get to talk directly with the engineers is really when you build that rapport with them, and kind of that line of communication really opens up. And once that happens, it really streamlines things across the board. And so I guess to answer that question, it'd be communication with the engineers, and them being willing to talk with the contractors.
So are there things that you prefer to take the ball on a project?
I do like, kind of the line that's there between means and methods, and not being, hypercritical on certain things. If it is means and methods, I kind of
I love that too.
Take that as a sign of competency as a contractor. I think that's a huge part and something I really enjoy. There's certain engineers who will come out and they'll be doing their 6 or 9 month walkthrough, and things start falling out of the closet, like, why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? But overall, we install our things with quality all the time. And,
sure.
I imagine that's a stressful walkthrough. Is it stressful for you to have the engineer out there? And you as an engineer, is it stressful to go out there? Like, I want to know more about that relationship.
It's
6 to 9 months walkthrough. Like, who's feeling who out? Like, are you worried that the engineer is going to say stuff, or are you worried that you're going to see bad stuff?
Yeah, for me, I'm just walking through and I'm thinking, all right, I'm trying to give the best product to the client, right? So I'm just making sure that, all right, was this done with, logic, right? So, I can see why they had to go up and over that wall now. All right, cool. That makes sense. Or not a wall, but you know what I'm saying? Like, just certain coordination within the field that had to happen. Maybe we didn't catch it in a punch, but sure, that makes sense. All right, cool. Yeah, you're good. Yeah.
Definitely used to be more nerve-wracking than kind of as you move along with your career, you kind of get used to what they're looking for, like Rafi said. And usually, if it's posed more as a question, like, why did you do that? Usually there's a good answer behind it. More and more, it's really been, it takes it can be overwhelming as a younger project manager, and that being kind of your first, amongst your first engineer walkthroughs.
Christine, I want to ask that same question to you too.
Yeah, actually, I had a quick question. How has technology helped you, or maybe it has hindered you in the walkthrough process? Because now you can go on job sites and they're actually using 3D cameras to take pictures every single day.
I thought you said a quick question. Yeah, I'm just kidding.
So I don't know if does that benefit you, that type of technology?
Well, the technology, not necessarily in the walkthrough, but the technology that's really getting us leading up to the walkthrough, they're really driving down QA, QC, which is really kind of a check and balance to avoid any of those questions. Yeah. And usually if you can vet those things out during the QA, QC process, it really makes the engineer and the architect walkthrough pretty painless.
Yeah, that's great.
So going back, though, you've got a rapport with engineers as well. What are some of the qualities you like to see or don't like to see when you're having those discussions with engineers?
Well, sometimes like I get sent specs that are just copied and pasted from like a prior project with like the prior project's name on it.
Okay.
So
right.
I'm and then I'm just wondering, was this a mistake or did they apply? Usually it's just a common mistake.
Sure.
They're like, oh, it's the same type of specs, but really to kind of piggyback off him, communication. I like it when people are like, well, what? Here's what I'm thinking about. I do controls, but here's what I'm thinking about controls. Here's what the client, came to me at, and like really utilizing my resources with my engineers to make sure, at the end of the day, the client is happy. So just really a partnership. Sometimes engineering firms, they'll send you the stuff and they'll say, okay, go ahead and, do it. But then you don't feel like you're a partner. I always like it when you feel like you're a partner and you're able to collaborate.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Questions are key.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. No assumptions. That's one of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of those things where, you've got them on your drawings and you're just like, I guess I assume they can figure this out in the field. I always hate when some of my younger engineers say that to me. I'm like, come on, guys. Let's just think through this a little bit. Just pick up the phone, call Harris, call Josh, call one of these guys.
Yeah.
Figure out and see if it'll work.
And typically, we're always, if we do have a question or something that we're concerned with, we'll pose our solution to really, because we know, you guys' workload is, pretty heavy. We usually like to put in a good solution or maybe two, kind of give you some options and kind of hopefully take some of that legwork out. Like, hey, here's the problem. I just kind of need you to bless it and make sure that this is going to be, something that is acceptable.
That's another one of those things with the communication and building a relationship with the contractor that's actually on the project. That is, props to Josh Howell. Again, he, instead of putting in an RFI or anything and making both of our firms, quote unquote, look bad, with the client who has a measuring system of how many RFIs are on a certain project, right? Pick up the phone. I'm going to call you. You call me. No problem. We can go grab a beer afterwards.
Yeah.
Let's knock it out.
Yeah.
So Devan, you have just recently joined ASHRAE.
Yeah.
And I was just curious, in your role, what was it that made you join our organization?
Well, I've been working in the Columbus region and been part of many ASHRAE events, and overall, joining ASHRAE is something that's always been on my mind. It's definitely the community. Just us sitting here in this podcast is, one of those things and one of those benefits that I think is really cool. You guys are definitely, kind of leading the charge in the trade. Like I said, in the mechanical world, it's hard to talk to people outside, at the bar stool and say, well, I'm in the mechanical trade, and I don't really know how to explain this because it take month of Tuesdays to explain what I'm actually doing here.
Right.
So to have that community to bounce things, between, generate work, generate ideas, all of those things. And like I said, it's kind of always been on my mind, but just recently, Harris was Devan, join it, get in, do it.
And so you have two sides of it. Now that you have joined, you are on the GC side. What advice would you give for our younger ASHRAE members who are considering, construction administration?
I would definitely, the advice, it's a very rewarding career. And like kind of what I was saying earlier with the multiple hats that you get to wear. So if you're an undecisive guy and you're sitting there in college and you're not really sure what you want to do, whether you want to go into engineering or you want to go into marketing or you want to go into accounting, you in this trade, you get to wear all those hats and you get to talk to a wide range of people across the across the industry, from, the people in the field that are putting the work in, to engineers, to presidents of companies, to accountants, everything. So it's a really broad spectrum career that, if you don't like what you're doing today, tomorrow it's going to be different. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely kind of what I would tell the younger generation is, it's a career where you get to do a lot of different things. Maybe not, and you can have your skills in certain sectors of that. Certain people are great at numbers. Some people are great at the engineering sides of things. And you really get the opportunity to wear a lot of hats, is what I would say.
So if you can go back in time and do something back then that you want to do now, what would that be? What would you tell yourself 15 years ago to do?
Would have tried a little harder and got into golf a lot sooner, and then I might be playing at the Memorial Tournament. But
Nice.
Aside from being a professional athlete, really, I've had that thought before, and it's really, I couldn't see myself kind of put into one sector of, call them, job titles. And, maybe by dumb luck, but I'm not sure I'd be in too much of a different career.
Sometimes, the laws of magnetism, we just
Yeah.
end up where we
Yeah.
belong.
And it is a career that's really rewarding if you stick with it and you work hard. The possibilities are really endless, and I can really stand by that.
So do you drive down, downtown and say like, yeah, I was part of that, I was part of
Yeah,
that, or does
that
it
would be
blend
pretty
together?
cool.
You do,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I've done a lot of work in high rises downtown between the PNC, obviously the William Green building. We were in there doing work for a lot of years. Was part of one of the Hilton hotels down there. Coming into town with the wife and things like that, I can kind of point out
That's
some
cool.
of my
Yeah, that's awesome.
some of my horror stories and some of my successes, and it is. And that also is a very nice part of the career, is you can kind of drive down the road and kind of look at a building, and I was a part of that.
I've literally done a 180. I've done a U-turn. I've been driving down the road, saw a building, and went, "Wait a second, that's that." I didn't even know they built that. Let me turn around, because I had left the company that
I designed that.
it with.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I cannot forget the facade of that building, because the cooling
Where
load
you
was
knew
incredible.
exactly
Yeah.
what was wrong with that up there
Yeah.
and why that was such an issue.
Right.
But now getting into the data centers where, you can drive around the outer belt and be like, that building over there,
Yeah.
they're popping up all over the place. So it's definitely cool.
So
Definitely.
just to circle all the way back, we started talking about data centers, and I don't want to just leave it alone, because that's definitely the trend.
Yeah.
What are you seeing on the data center construction side that we in the mechanical side would want to know about?
They're very interesting. A lot of people like to look at the data centers and kind of see them as a kind of a copy and paste across the industry. But they're constantly evolving. Like right now, we're getting into liquid cooling, into some data centers right here in Columbus, which is really kind of new technology for cooling in those, where all the piping is requiring some passivation testing. Lots of pipe in there, so it's really exciting from the mechanical side of things, because it's kind of starting to bridge the gap. It was always kind of a very electrical heavy thing. With mechanical, obviously you need to cool the equipment, but kind of with the liquid cooling, it's kind of starting to close that gap between kind of a 50-50 between the electrical trades and the mechanical trades.
Yeah, that
Interesting.
And obviously
liquid immersion cooling is
and they're
fascinating.
getting quicker, and obviously we're working with major corporations that have a lot of pull with equipment, so they're getting much faster, where they're procuring the equipment way earlier ahead of a building, to the point where as fast as you can pour concrete and get walls up, they're going up.
Well, I've heard they're building two buildings identical to each other, so that when one needs maintenance, they just flip a switch and they run all the data from the other. And
Oh, wow.
they
That's a
have
switchover right there. Yeah, that's redundancy.
Redundancy.
Yeah, that's great.
complete building redundancy.
That's
That's
great.
pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Very
And
interesting.
we have we're actively doing work with 3 of the hyperscalers in the country that are building data centers, which is really exciting to kind of have that backlog with those major corporations like Amazon and Microsoft and Meta. So it's really exciting for the entire construction industry. Whether you're a guy who pours concrete, they're figuring out ways to pour more concrete in these things, or you're a drywaller or electricians. Really feel for them as far as the amount of manpower that's required for these things. It's really good for the entire community as far as the trades go. But it's exciting. It's exciting for me, eyesores for others, but it's kind of where we're going in the technology age with AI, and it's really the one thing that's holding us back.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It is super cool to be able to say that you worked on one of the household name type industry, huge mega corporation type projects. Yeah.
Yep.
I worked on an Amazon job. Wow, nice. That's awesome.
I did a
yeah,
meta.
That's killer.
I did a meta.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
yeah, it's real exciting for the entire industry. And like I said, it's a fast-paced. you know, and really interesting if you like
never
pipe
a
and
dull
duct.
moment. Yeah.
Well, do you guys have any other questions as far as something that our ASHRAE members could benefit from hearing from Devan?
I think it's always an interesting question on, was there somebody who was a mentor to you
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a good question.
that added something to your career,
Absolutely.
pushed you in a certain direction?
I had a really good upbringing, like I was saying, through the ranks, where I got the opportunity to work with certain project managers, and really kind of, and all of them were different in their own special way. You know, one guy was, you know, very diligent in this side of the industry. One was kind of lax, but, you know, really, really active with the guys and, you know, promoting, you know, how you can do things faster. So I wouldn't say there was a single mentor, but I would say that there was multiple mentors where I kind of grabbed kind of my favorite parts of them and kind of molded myself.
That's awesome. How about you, Christine?
Yeah, I remember actually, you know, 20 years ago when I got started in the, you know, sales, industrial sales, I'll call it. I initially didn't have a mentor, and when I went on LinkedIn and typed in sales jobs inside of industrial, you know, I didn't see any women. So I got started, and then initially, after I got started, I started to meet other women, like facility directors that were women, and I was like, wow. And then now I meet engineers that are women, and so it's gotten a lot, quote unquote, better for me as like mentors go, because I think a lot more women are flooding the industry, which is great. And so yeah, I would say just recently, a big mentor that I can think of would be Jennifer, who was a medical device back before I did industrial device rep. She looked at me and she said, "You have a lot of qualities that I had when I was your age, and I want to mentor you." And I just thought that was like really sweet to just have someone, you know, come up to you and just recognize like my raw talent. And, you know, she spent extra time with me in the week to kind of like train me up. Sometimes it just takes that one person that says, I recognize in you what I had in myself 20 years ago. So shout out Jennifer.
Yeah.
What's up, Jennifer?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's mentors, but it's also kind of, you know, I have a lot of guys, you know, and, you know, my age that kind of came up in the industry at the same time, where you become buddies, and you really can bounce ideas off of. So,
Totally.
And again, you know, pick out your favorite parts of that person, and, you know, just having that community, because we all know, you know, those people that if you don't know the answer, as long as you know the person who does know the answer, that's the most important thing.
Yeah,
for sure.
And another great plug for ASHRAE is that, you know,
Absolutely.
once you're a member, you can reach out to any one of us.
Totally.
I think I have 14 mentors in ASHRAE just because I run into something. I'm like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And I know who I can reach out to. So
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for being here, Devin.
Absolutely.
Christine, thank you so much for hosting
this
us
place is
today.
Yeah.
Place is
Shout out
awesome.
Phil. Thanks for
Shout out Pikachu.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Pikachu.
Yeah. No problem.
And with that, guys, I think we are wrapping this up.
Awesome.
And we will see everybody on the next episode of the Columbus ASHRAE Podcast.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, thanks.